Thank you very much for joining this presentation, and thank you very much for uh, uh, inviting me to this presentation as well for all the team from BET Expo and Ilana in particular. My name is Juan Pablo Córdoba. I'm the Managing Director of iGaming Latam, and today I'm going to talk about online gaming in the Latam region. And in particular, I'm going to talk about the keys to success in this market that it seems very interesting for different people around the globe. Uh, Talking a little bit more about myself, I'm the managing director of iGaming Latam. As I said before, iGaming Latam is a consultancy firm that helps different operators around the globe to develop their business in Latin America. In particular, we help them with customer support, marketing strategy, product portfolio, acquisition, retention, CRM, and other kind of things related to the operation in particular. In addition to that, I'm also the CPO of Neko Games. Neko Games is a game studio that develop games for the Latin American market in particular in partnership with Microgaming. And before that, I was marketing director for Jackpot Joy in Latam and also head of marketing and BI for them. I was marketing director for Coder in Brazil for a company called Swaposta that was sold to Betson a couple of months ago, and head of BI for BetMotion and some other operators around the region. And also have some degrees on casino management, e-marketing, and customer analytics as well. Today, I want to talk about the LATAM region in particular. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to consider LATAM as a group of countries that includes Mexico, the Central America and the Caribbean countries, and also South America, including Brazil. These group of countries are in total, there are a total of 32 countries in particular. They have 620 million people in total, and the GDP per capita is around $17,000, which is, because according to these numbers, a very interesting market. But one of the things that you need to understand about this market is that it's in a very early stage in everything related to online gambling. If we look at the numbers of online gambling, the raw numbers of online gambling, we could see that only 0.2% of the population plays online right now, and the market is generated around $8 million GGR per year. And those numbers are concentrated, 80% of that is concentrated in only 6 countries: Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru, and Colombia, which makes it very, very early stage market. This means that this total market, these 32 countries, are generating the same GGR, the number of players, as the Spanish market. One single country in Europe is generating the same as the total region, right? So again, a lot of field to improve. But the good news is that all the different analysis and estimations around the market says that in the next 5 years, these numbers are going to grow, especially GGR, the number of players. And they're thinking that there's going to grow 10 times the current values. And the reason, or one of the two main reasons behind this, is that this region is going through a regulatory process. Brazil is regulating, Argentina, the city of Buenos Aires, and the province of Buenos Aires is regulating. Chile and Peru are also thinking on regulation. Colombia is regulated, but in a very early stage, and it's the same situation with Mexico. This other thing that is important that explains this growth is the player's maturity. It is expected that the player's maturity will grow a lot during the next 5 years. And some operators says that this is going to happen in the next 3 years, which means if that happens, maybe this continent, this region in particular, will generate the same GGR and the same number of players that the UK market right now, which is very interesting. This is basically what all the operators that are targeting Latin America right now knows about the market, and this is why they are so interested about this market. What they don't know in particular, or only a few operators know about this market, is that how this transition is going to happen and what are the challenges that are going to face during the next 5 years. And the main challenge they're going to face, is that in order for these numbers to reach these numbers, is that the blue ocean of potential players, I mean, those people that are willing to play online, but for some reason they are not doing it right now, they will need to convert them. And after that, they will need to maximize the player value, right? So if you think about Latin America and the rest of the countries in Europe, you could say that in that particular scenario, they are completely different. In particular, because the player behavior or the local idiosyncrasy are completely different between the two regions, right? So right now, I'm going to talk about what are the 10 keys to success in LATAM, considering those differences, and trying to help you guys if you have an operation in Malta or in Europe and you want to develop the business in Latin America. What are the key things that you need to consider that, in my opinion, are very, very different to what you're doing right now in other markets. This is basically based on my experience, of course, but also I include some analysis I did related to what other operators did extremely well in Latin America, and they're having some extremely good numbers, and also including some analysis on those operators that failed completely and leave the market in the last 2 or 3 years. Okay, so let's start. First thing you need to know is that you need to have a clear definition on your target, right? First of all, Latin America is not a market itself. Latin America is a group of countries very different between each other with different cultures, different idiosyncrasies. So if you're thinking on targeting Latin America on all the Spanish speaker countries because it's the same language, then think again, because the difference between them is extremely big. And not between also the countries, but especially between the regions inside the countries and the cities are also very important as well. The best example is Brazil. So the northeast of Brazil is very different to São Paulo and Rio, and São Paulo and Rio are very different between each other. And at the same time, those cities are very different to the south. But the good news is that even if you're starting in the market and you want to target one single city, there is a really good opportunity for you there because, for example, São Paulo, it's 25 million people by its own. So it's a market itself. It's like a small country inside the country, right? Or Mexico City. Mexico City is around 30 million people, if I get it right. So you think on that before targeting the Latin American market. The most important thing related to the definition of your target is that you need to define what we call the DNA of the player. And the DNA of the player for us is basically defining the key questions related to gambling that you need to consider, and it's going to affect the player behavior of the player. Some examples of this could be how they consider gambling. It's something, a bad habit for them. It's another entertainment proposal. Do they do transactional operations online? Do they purchase things online? It's very common for them to do that. How much they know about the games? Do they know about slots? Do they know about sports betting? And when you have that definition, I strongly recommend you to put that definition in the center of your strategy and do a 360 analysis on that and face that definition of your player with your customer support strategy, your marketing strategy, your product strategy, your payments and fraud strategy, and marketing and branding, and so on. And you will see if you're running an operation from Malta or from Europe, from different parts of the world, you will see that the needs that these players have are very different to the needs that other markets and other players will have in other parts of the world. The second thing that you need to consider is about branding and acquisition. First of all, if you're thinking on branding only for Latin America, that's not enough. When I'm saying branding only, I'm saying that there are a lot of operators that think they have the best user experience, they have the best product, they have the best marketing team and the best branding, and they want to invest really hard on marketing on Latin America. So they start buying media and TV ads and so on, and spending millions of euros. And after a while, they will realize that this will not work. There are a lot of examples you can Google online. A lot of examples of operators, big operators, top 10 operators in the market that spend 5 million, 10 million euros on branding, and they didn't succeed. They didn't have value from the market, and they left the market immediately after that because they think there is no value in the market. I strongly recommend you to use brand ambassadors. This guy on the right here is Xuxa. He's a very famous swimmer in Brazil. He's very charismatic, great personality, and it will help you. The brand ambassador, the local brand ambassadors will help you to destroy all the myths around the industry. In Latin America, there's a lot of myths around gambling, that is illegal, that is against religion, that is a bad habit, and so on. Using this kind of an ambassador that the people trust, they will help you to destroy those myths. In this case, Xuxa also help us to train the players about how to deposit, how to withdraw, how to play, because we create some really good videos around those concepts. Um, on the other side, if you're thinking, okay, let's try to find the best affiliates in the market, and it's best really because we have the best affiliate deal and we have the best affiliate managers. Well, think again, because there are only a few good affiliates in the market. Alessandro, who spoke before me, that's one of them that I recommend to work with him. But there's only a few of them. There is not too much. A lot of people will say that they have traffic for Latin America, but traffic that you can convert and could get value from them, that's only a few. And because of this scenario, obviously there's a lot of opportunities for SEO and SEM if there is a chance to do that, if it's allowed, because some keywords are very, very cheap in comparison with other markets where the competition is much more aggressive. Number three, customer support, and this is probably one of the key things of everything if you want to target Latin America. First of all, local language, and local between quotes, it's not enough. If you have a Portuguese speaking customer support team from Portugal, or a customer support team that speaks Spanish, but the people it's from Spain, and you're thinking on targeting Brazil and the rest of Latin America with that customer support team, well, think again, because for us, it's going to be like an insult to hear those words or the typical phrases from those European markets. It's like an insult, it's something bad. It's not going to generate any kind of threats. But even between Latin America, I'm myself, I'm Argentinian. If I hear some Colombian guy in a customer support team or Chilean guy, I will feel the same, and vice versa, right? So depending on your target market, you need to have the same local language, but also the same phrases, try to use the same words and the same ways of say things, right? It's really important. You also need to consider customer support team, not just like a team that will solve the specific issues at some specific points of the journey of the player. You need to think a customer support team that will help the player to go through all the different stages of the life cycle and take the players by the hand on every single stage, because players don't understand anything about depositing, playing, withdrawing, and etc. And they will need help. They will need real people behind to help them to go through this. Obviously, thinking on this, the typical knowledge-based strategy, or the FAQ-based strategy, where you push players to the knowledge base, try to force them to find their answers for themselves, and then eventually, if they have any question, try to have some kind of direct contact, maybe at the beginning with the robot and then with the customer support team in the chat. That will not work. People prefer to lead instead of reading, because normally Latin American players will never read, will never try to understand by themselves. They will look for real people that will help them to go through these problems. In that sense, I strongly recommend you to have many direct contacts methods as possible. WhatsApp, live chat, Facebook chat, inbound calls, and emails, everything you can have. But of course, if you do that, you need to have a really strong segment strategy, because the cost of that will be extremely, extremely big. So you need to have some kind of segment strategy where you put the high player values, or sorry, the high value players or the potential value players at the first in the queue. Otherwise, it's going to be extremely expensive. Number four, payment methods. Latin America is a very cash-driven market, so I strongly recommend you to work with local payment methods that also have some local shops that can collect money from deposits and also can pay prices. Internationally, wallets are not popular. If you have Neteller or PayPal, that's fine, but they're not going to make any kind of differences. If you can, don't charge fees to the players, specifically in deposits. You can lose. Obviously, if you have a VIP strategy where you don't charge fees to the players, that's fine. But even for potential VIP players, if you can avoid charging fees to them, that will be great. Otherwise, you could lose a lot of good players because of that. I strongly recommend you also to have some backups for the local payment methods specifically. For example, if you have Boleto in Brazil, I would strongly recommend you to have 2 different or 3 different payment processors that could support you on that, because they fail a lot. So sometimes you will lose a very important payment method because of that. And in addition to that, if you're thinking that the Latin American economy is dollarized, well, think again. You need to have local currency. Never came to Latin America with having only dollars or euros for deposits or to play. Number 5, UX and UI for dummies. As I said before, it's a very early stage market, so players don't understand exactly how online casino works. This is something that all the operators does very well, but anyway, I want to review a little bit some of the key points on this topic. First of all, try to have the simple registration and deposit forms as possible. Try to ask for the mandatory information only. If you want to ask for more information, it will be time later for that, especially at the withdrawals the stage. But at the beginning, just ask for the minimum information possible. Obviously, you don't have to have no more than 2 or 3 clicks to place a bet. If you can have games on the homepage, that's great because player will never scroll, so they will play whatever you show in the initial screen, the homepage. Also, I'm talking about not only casino, but also talking about sports. If you can have combo bets in your homepage, that will be great. That will work extremely well. The customer support link should be clearly visible because all the reasons that I mentioned before. I strongly recommend you to avoid as much text as possible because player will never read. Try to use images, try to use videos, try to be very graphical when you're trying to explain something or try to communicate something. And everything else you can imagine related to have the best UX for this market in particular. Number 6, portfolio strategy, also a very important topic. Obviously, you need to have local games and local markets for sports. If you don't know what this game is, this is Showball. This is the most popular video bingo in Brazil. So you need to have this kind of game for Brazil and also for Mexico. Video bingos are extremely big in Mexico as well. In terms of sports, people are not very familiarized with combo bets, so you need to have some cross-selling strategy from traditional bets or normal bets to combo bets. Having this kind of pre-created combo bets in the homepage will work a lot. That will be a really good strategy for you. So I strongly recommend that. In terms of casino games, start thinking on high hit frequency instead of having high prices. This is related to the trust issue. So imagine normally high prices games are related to a high volatility in terms of the mathematics of the games. So imagine that you're a new player in Latin America that you don't trust. If you're a Latin American, you don't trust on the government, you don't trust on the police, you don't trust on the neighbor. Imagine trying to trust in an online casino that is new for them. So if you have a very high volatility portfolio, after 5, 6, or 7 spins, it could happen that you will not win anything, and immediately they will think that you are stealing money from them. So start thinking of high hit frequency, more regular winnings, slow winnings, but more frequent. That will work even better than having high prices or high jackpots. That in some specific cases, those higher jackpots are higher than the national lottery prices, for example, and that those kind of things are not generating trust at all. And you also need to think on mobile and also desktop. Right now, the average revenues coming from mobile in Latin America is around 45%. So 55% is coming from desktop as well. I know there is a trend in Europe to think mobile first and so on. That's fine, but you cannot avoid thinking on desktop as well. Number 7, also very important, be patient with the player value. This is a graph that shows the player value from an operator that we used to work with. We run the full operation in Latin America for them. They were extremely strong in Asia. They have the best value from that market. And also they have some operations in the Nordics and the UK. And this blue line was the original player value evolution that they had at the beginning. When they hired us, we started to implement everything I said before. And the growth of the player value after 18 months was extremely exponential. And at this time, the player value that they have in from LATAM is even higher than Asia. As you can see, and this is the reason of why I'm including this player value is growing exponentially. So at the beginning, what will happen is that the player will start depositing a little bit and then withdrawing a little bit, try to see if everything goes well and trying to generate some kind of trust in terms of the transactional events. And then after that, after the 5th or the 6th deposit, maybe they will start showing you the real value. Of course, you need to support this growth with a lot of promotions, with a lot of actions, because that will never happen alone. But that is what is going to happen. If you're thinking, or if you have a typical thinking that says that after the first deposit, I know exactly how much value I can get from a player, or maybe after the 3rd deposit, I know exactly how much value I can get to the player. Well, in Latin America, that will not happen because at the beginning, they will not show you exactly how much value they worth. Number 8, and also related to this topic, think on promotion as part of your value proposition, as part of your product portfolio. And the reason behind this is because how we consider internet. So internet in LATAM is considered as a place where I could get discounts, offers, or something extra. If you're selling something in internet that has the same price that in a retail store and it's the same product, I will always choose, or normally Latin Americans will prefer to go to the retail stores because they can touch it, they can test it, they can talk with the real sales people, and they could see if they're trying to scam them or not. So discounts are extremely important in LATAM, and that's why you need to consider for every single transaction, every single financial commitment, you need to consider some kind of promotion behind. Related to those promotions, it's extremely important that you keep simple math around that. If you have a 25% bonus on the first deposit, a 35% bonus on the second one, with different minimum requirements for deposit and maximum bonuses, different maximum bonuses, with wage requirements that are extremely high, complicated to calculate, or with different contributions to wage requirements according to different games, that will never work. Just for you to have an idea, 70% of the people in Latin America only have the basic mathematical skills. And when I say basic mathematical skills, I'm talking about the mathematical skills that you learn on primary school. So if you have very complicated percentages and wage requirements and so on, they will never understand it, and they will start thinking that you are trying to scam them, you're trying to steal money from them. And you need to have promotions for every single stage of the life cycle. For the early life, for the prematurity stage, or for the maturity stage, you need to have promotions all the time. Different types of promotions, of course, because the objectives, the goals of different stages are different, but you need to have promotions for every one of them, for every single transaction again. And you always need to think on maximizing the player value and the ROI of the campaign. Otherwise, you're going to start spending a lot of money on bonusing that is not going to give any kind of result. So I strongly recommend you analyzing that and having the best promotion portfolio possible related to those goals. Number 9, productivity. And this is related to all the critical changes that will happen in the next 5 years in LATAM. Changes will happen in terms of regulation, customer support standard, payment methods, products and games, and everything you can imagine related to the operation. And only those that could be at the top of the change, that could be changed immediately and react immediately to the market, those will be the ones that are going to succeed. And last but not least, the last one is, I strongly recommend you to work with local people. This is a picture of our team, a part of our team in Uruguay. As you can see, we have Mexican people, we have Brazilians, we have Uruguayans, we have Argentinians, we have Peruvians. We have one specialist for every single market that we target. And I strongly recommend that. Even if your wife is Brazilian, if you spend some time in Latin America, you live in Mexico, wherever, you think you know about Latin America, well, again, think again, because only those who have the local DNA will understand the local problems, and only those that are local will be able to solve the local issues. And that's it. Thank you very much, guys. Here's my email and my Skype ID and my telephone if you want to ask me questions. I'm open also for questions right now in the chat. Okay, it seems that there are no questions in the chat. So here is my contacts. Right. Thank you, Andres. Thank you for that. There's my email address and my Skype ID and telephone number. If you have any questions, please contact me and I will try to help you immediately. Thank you very much for your time and see you soon.